We live in a world of disparate application systems, and when you have varying criteria and complex business rules, stitching multiple data sources becomes fairly complicated fairly quickly. However, for deep analysis, compliance reporting, and ad hoc report generation, it is critical that data is stitched from multiple systems, often cleansed and then staged for consumption, and all of this done by the end users themselves. On-time analytics provides a platform that allows users to ingest data from multiple data sources, then cleanse, apply rules if required, and create data lakes for further analysis and visualization. In this video, we'd like to show data staging and compliance reporting. Healthcare insurance providers continuously have to report to government as part of their compliance process. In this example, we've chosen a compliance requirement that healthcare providers must report back to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. The ever-present challenge for small and medium-sized businesses is the expense of IT resources required to gather and cleanse data long before actual reporting is created. Oftentimes, initiatives that are easier for large enterprises who have at their disposal an army of IT resources is not feasible for smaller businesses. But nonetheless, small businesses still have the same requirements as their larger counterparts. The challenges of integration to multiple sources translates to large cost initiatives which can't be borne by smaller enterprises. Furthermore, smaller enterprises cannot afford multiple expensive software licenses. On-time analytics solves this problem by allowing integration through web services and direct database access. Let's log into our application and show you our data ingestion facilities. In our main warehouse tab, you can see all the ways you can ingest data. You can ingest data through flat files, databases such as MySQL, SQL Server, Oracle. You can ingest data through social media, platforms such as Twitter, Facebook. And you can also ingest data through popular web service offerings. The example we're about to show requires access to data from Social Security, IRS, claim systems, and private insurer data. For simplicity, we've created flat files that contain this information. The data we want to work with is covered by these 5 files. The members file includes information about individual members covered by a group serviced by our health insurance provider. Coverage types is a file that contains a list of all the coverages offered by our health insurance provider. Eligibility is a file that contains the coverage periods, meaning the start and end date of a particular coverage for each of the group members. Let's take a quick peek inside the pertinent files. The members file has personal details about individual members as well as some identity columns representing the member in the source database. The date of birth column is an encoded value which can be decoded using on-time analytics business rules. The eligibility file contains the coverage effective and termination dates, as well as some other related columns. Again, these dates are encoded and will be decoded using on-time analytics business rules. The coverage types file is a listing of all the coverage types offered by our insurance provider. And the groups file includes details about each of the groups serviced. Once we've ingested these files, as can be seen here, we can continue to perform our stitch operation. To perform our stitching, we select our 2 resources, members, eligibility, and then press the stitching button. Let's give a name to our stitched resource, and then press next. Now what you see here are 2 tabs representing the eligibility resource as well as the member resource we selected to be stitched together. The way stitching works is we select the columns from each of the resources we like in our final stitch and then select the column we'll be doing the stitch along. Let's go ahead and perform the stitch. Let's select the columns we like. So by default initially all the columns are selected. So if we like most of them, we can keep the default, just deselect the ones you don't need. And for the members, we don't need the group identifier as it's already in the eligibility column as group number. So this is good. So the next thing we want to do is just select our column we're going to be stitching along, and it's going to be member ID. Member ID like so. We add it to the rule and click on next and click on finish. Now that we've stitched together members and eligibility into our claims resource, let's see what our claims resource looks like. Now the claims resource is the integrated resource between members and eligibility, and you can see that from the columns right here. It's a composition of both resources, members and eligibility. For data deficiencies, we've created a rule-based dashboard that shows alerts where the data needs to be cleansed, making it easier for the end user to identify where changes need to take place prior to reporting. Let's bring that up. We've got two types of alerts highlighted here, one in red and one in yellow or golden. If you hover over the alert, you can see what it entails. So this one is talking about invalid coverage periods, and that could possibly mean that if you look at the effective date and the termination date, the effective date begins later than the termination date, which is obviously wrong. And if you look at the red ones, these are invalid SSNs. So this is unknown, so it needs to be filled in by speaking to the member. This particular SSN probably begins with 0, which is why it's been flagged, and so is this one. Once we've corrected the errors, we can go back to our integrated file. Now, prior to reporting, the user can define further transformation rules to cleanse the data or modify the data. An example, all the dates defined by our date of birth, effective date, termination dates need to be reported without any hyphens. Let's go ahead and give an example. So let's create a formatted date for the date of birth. And we select our rule. And apply. Now this will have created a formatted date of birth, as you can see here. If we go back to our integrated file, you can see the date of birth formatted according to our report. To close this video presentation, I'd like to show you some of our pre-configured rules that go along with the claim system reporting to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Navigating to our Warehouse tab allows you to view all the rules that have been pre-configured. Activating the drop-down will allow you to see all the rules, and hovering over the description gives a brief description of what the rule is about. After applying one or more of these rules to your integrated file, you can then generate an output report, either XML or a spreadsheet, which can then be sent to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services.